Your story belongs here.
Your story belongs here.
Your story belongs here.
This project invites students into a window of what their experience might be on campus. The stories that we feature bring students across a myriad of backgrounds. We have graduate students, undergraduate students, international students, non-traditional students. We hope that students feel inspired to think about the experiences, the perspectives that they are bringing to our campus community, or the stories that they want to create once they get here. Our institutional story, UMBC's story, is incomplete without their stories.
My name is Kayla Tabernero. My pronouns are she, her. I am in the CWIT program, the Center for Women Technology, a scholarship program at UMBC. When you first get accepted into the program, there are a multitude of different events throughout the summer where you get to meet people. And we went through a bunch of icebreakers and bonding activities. You would also get to meet people where you have to choose your roommate, because one of the requirements for the scholarship program is to be in this living learning community in Chesapeake Hall. The first floor is just reserved for new scholars and affiliates of the CWIT program. It was incredibly scary, I'm not gonna lie, because new people, new program, and I wanted to put my best self out there. I grew up in a mixed Black and Filipino-American family. So on both sides of my heritage, mental health was insanely taboo. You don't talk about it. Your emotions were seen as a weakness and something to suppress and control. You weren't supposed to ever acknowledge it, much less even treat it. So growing up, I became the overachieving, gifted, and talented student, the perfectionist that was, a straight-A student scholar and had all of these internships coming even before coming to college. I was the embodiment of Black excellence and the Asian student that your father compares you to. So I was trying to be everything that these stereotypes kind of showed me.
So I transferred to UMBC in the fall of 2018. Prior to that, I had spent 2 years at a different school, but my mental health wasn't really that great at the time, and part of that was because I never really felt I found a community there. I transferred, I found out about UMBC's acting program. I auditioned in, and once they said yes, I was here. I felt really good about that, but I know my mom was pretty concerned at the time. I can't even begin to tell you how much time, effort, energy, money she's put into ensuring I get a good education. We're both Korean, and a proper education is really important to our culture. When I transferred, that kind of shook things up a little bit because I was going against the norm of what a college experience should look. I found out with transferring I would have at least 1 extra year of undergrad as opposed to the traditional 4-year model, unless I did this exception, which was taking maximum credits every semester until I graduated. For context, full-time at UMBC is considered 12 credits, which is about 4 classes a week. Max without permission is 19. I was taking 22 a semester. So needless to say, I was overworked. Really, my days consisted of me running back and forth across campus. I wouldn't get home sometimes until 11 o'clock, sometimes midnight, and I would still have homework. It was really a case of, am I going to eat tonight or am I going to go to bed? A lot of the time that manifested in me falling asleep in class. I remember I would wake up just folded over these tiny little desks, and I would feel so guilty, With that, my grades were slipping, and I had friends, but not really time to socialize with any of them. So college in general just became this thing that I was so intent on getting done that I wasn't really present for any of it.
Yeah, so my name is Anelsi Valencia. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a McNair Scholar under the REM 34 cohort. I was first exposed to the McNair program as a very young girl. I was in elementary school, probably around 7 or 8 years old. My godmother was director of the McNair Scholars Program at Eastern Washington University, and I remember during this time, my godmother would bring me into her office after picking me up from school, and I didn't really know what the McNair program was, but I do remember getting to spend time in the trio office. I remember students were sitting around like a big round table in the center of the computer lounge. There were glue guns and glitter and cutout letters and some ribbon all over the table, and students were placing these meaningful messages on their graduation caps. Just watching them laugh with each other, watching my godmother smile at them very proudly was something that really lit up in me, and I think that in that moment fueled my curiosity and my excitement to join the McNair Scholars community.
I had taken my first Calculus 1 test, and that was a lot. It took its toll mentally and physically, and it just drained me. And then literally out of nowhere, my entire body just started tensing, and my chest was tightening, and I felt my pulse everywhere from the tips of my toes all the way to the center of my forehead. So I racked my brain again. Is this even worth getting help for? Am I even worth getting help for? I remember being, no, I'm not going to the emergency room because this is just silly. I'm just anxious. I'm just a kid that had a test in the morning and now I'm freaking out. I thought this is something that I shouldn't go to the hospital for. But eventually, after more dwelling, I ended up doing something that I never thought I would do, which is I called a friend. A friend at the time that was a CWIT scholar, and they were my best friend. We were attached at the hip, and they were my lifeline transitioning into UMBC. They come from the hallway 4 doors down, they're rushing in, and they're grabbing another student, another CWIT scholar from the hall, and the trio of us, are driving in the dead of night at 1 o'clock in the morning to the ER. In the quietness of the car, we are hit with the nerdiest song ever from Epic the Musical on TikTok, of all places. It was so funny because in that moment, we just started to laugh. We were laughing because it was ridiculous. I mean, that was the soundtrack my two friends chose on this very serious and not musical car ride. It felt we were in a Broadway musical. And we just ended up laughing all the way until we got to the hospital.
I was setting up my schedule for the following semester. I figured I would do 22 still because, it's all online anyway. We can get that done. And I had to have a meeting with the chair of the theater department in order to get permission for that. I was on the Zoom waiting room, and I remember seeing my mother's dining room table with all these papers stacked across it, all these potential schedules, because I was not going to accept no for an answer. And then the meeting started and it went well, but the chair said something to me I still think about to this day. Don't be a martyr to your education. And it was, wow, for the first time someone had told me you don't have to do this in the traditional way. You're allowed to take your time. And that was mind-blowing. I ended up leaving that meeting with only 15 credits for the next semester and the knowledge that I would have 2 more years of undergrad. When I told my mom that, she was concerned naturally, and I remember seeing her kind of lean in with her chest all this, and she said, "So did you waste time transferring?" And what I realized in that moment was, no, I didn't waste time transferring. I had been wasting my time going to school, but sort of just letting it all pass by. So I decided to slow down, and I'm really glad I did.
In preparation for orientation and bridge weekend, I remember reading down the suggested packing list over and over again. I think I read it 3 or 4 times just to make sure we didn't forget anything. I think we only got 3 hours of sleep, and the Uber brought us to UMBC, to campus. And when we got off the Uber, we saw the McNair staff and orientation leaders waving, and it was very early. Everyone was tired, but they were very enthusiastic with their good mornings and their welcoming energy. We make it to the hotel lobby. Eventually, the elevator comes to a stop, the doors open, and we see all of these black and yellow decorations, a lot of confetti and balloons just decorated around the room. It felt we were already represented in this space that we were walking into. So that was very special. And then we walked over to a table with black and gold confetti, and they each had a yellow envelope with our names on it. And they were meant for us to write notes to each other. If you wanted to compliment someone on a question that they asked during a workshop, or if you just want to recall a funny memory, really, that was where we wrote messages to each other. During this event, we also engaged in a legacy writing workshop. It was really inspiring to learn about how my peers wanted to be remembered. And for me, it was using research as a tool for advocacy and change, specifically to center the voices, the needs, and the stories of marginalized communities of color, such as my own Latin community. Thinking about what my own legacy would be, I think that that has helped me be more mindful, grounded, and intentional, especially this summer. The research that I got to engage in really is focused on health equity, specifically within the Latin community. So I feel that reflection and activity really does keep showing up with my engagement in preparation to grad school.
I remember laying on the hospital bed and looking to my right, and both of my friends are sitting in the worst and most uncomfortable hospital chairs known to man, and they were doing everything they could to make me feel a little bit better about my situation. We talked about friends and drama in school, everything, and then nothing at all. I just watched, and for one singular moment, I felt, wow, these were students that I had known for less than a month. People who had no obligation to care about me, and yet here they were. They waited for me. They held space. They sacrificed their sleep and their time and their mental health. I remember I felt something so undeniable and unfamiliar at the same time. I felt I belonged. I felt for the first time that I was being taken care of, not in spite of my flaws, but with them. The spirals, the quirks that I have, the good and the bad from within me, they didn't run away from it. They just stayed. As the months went by and the semester passed, our relationships ended up dwindling and changing. It is the end of spring semester of my freshman year. And I find myself in the exact same CWIT lounge where I met these people for the first time. And we're having a CWIT Living Learning Community game night. And I remember someone turning the lights off, and we're all cuddled and huddled up in different blankets and pillows on these very green chairs. And I see the two friends, or estranged friends, from months ago, and they're laying on each other in the exact same position they were in the hospital. I remember feeling so content because I felt I was in that moment again in the hospital, that we were just three kids who reminded me that I was more than just my grades or my professional development, that I was more than who I thought I was, that I was worth care, that I was worth fighting for, and that at the end of the day is what belonging looked for me. Not perfection, just presence.
So I decided to slow down, and I'm really glad I did. My grades improved. I got a 4.0 every semester after that point. I finally found community. I got really close with the English and theater departments here, which are two very queer spaces, may I add. So that allowed me to explore things such as my gender identity, my sexual identity, and just who I am as an artist. Slowing down also let me take on additional degrees. When I graduated, it was with a Bachelor of the Fine Arts in Acting, a Bachelor of the Arts in English, and a minor in creative writing. And I can tell you my mom was just as proud to watch me walk across that stage with 3 degrees as she would have been had I forced myself to do this in 4 years. And I'm really grateful that that happened too, because now I am going to grad school in Los Angeles as a working actor and published author, and I'm still allowed to incorporate all of my disciplines into my daily life, and I'm really grateful for that. I don't know if I hadn't slowed down that I would still be on that track. I think we get a really stereotypical image through media of, the whole 4-year Ivy League model, but that's not everyone's truth, and that's okay. UMBC is where your story belongs, and please by all means take your time.
The first activity that we started with was actually decorating those yellow envelopes that were in our book bags. On the last day of orientation weekend, we got to open them up in the lobby as we're waiting for the shuttle back to UMBC, and we got to learn about moments where people felt inspired by each other. One of the messages that I got was from someone who said that they felt very heard and validated when they were speaking. So I feel that was very touching. I have started to draft my personal statement. I do intend on applying to mainly PhD programs to be able to learn from, connect with, and support peers and scholars who bring diverse skills and values and perspectives while still sharing similar goals. And ultimately, being part of the community has solidified my goals in wanting to use research as a tool for advocacy and change to really center the voices, needs, and stories of communities my own.